They threw me away like yesterday's trash, my own children. While I sat in that nursing home room with its smell of antiseptic and defeat, they were at my house, measuring the walls for renovations and arguing over who'd get the master bedroom. They thought I was senile, confused, too old to understand what was happening, but I understood everything, and I stayed quiet, because sometimes the best revenge is the kind they never see coming. My name is Lorraine Mitchell, and before you hear what I did to the children who betrayed me, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city and state in the comments. I love knowing I'm not alone in this. Because what I'm about to tell you, it's going to sound unbelievable, but every single word is true. I'm 72 years old. I raised 3 children in Portland, Oregon, 2 daughters and a son. Jennifer, the oldest at 48, Michael, my 45-year-old middle child, and Rebecca, my baby, at 42. Their father, Robert, died 6 years ago from a heart attack. Sudden, devastating. He left me our house, fully paid off, worth about $800,000 in today's market. He left me his life insurance, his pension, and investments we'd carefully built over 40 years of marriage. I wasn't wealthy by some standards, but I was comfortable, secure, independent. Or so I thought. The problem started about a year after Robert died. Jennifer began calling more often. At first, I thought she was being sweet, checking on her widowed mother. Mom, are you eating enough? Mom, did you remember to pay the water bill? Mom, maybe you should come stay with us for a while. Little questions, little concerns, little seeds of doubt planted carefully in everyone's mind, including my own. Then came the doctor's appointments. Jennifer insisted on taking me. Just routine checkups, Mom. At your age, you need to stay on top of things. She'd sit in the examination room, answering questions for me before I could speak. She's been forgetting things, doctor. Yesterday, she couldn't remember where she put her keys. Sometimes she seems confused about what day it is. I wasn't forgetting things. I'd misplaced my keys once, like every human being on Earth has done. And I'd been confused about whether it was Tuesday or Wednesday because the days blend together when you're retired and living alone. But Jennifer made it sound like I was losing my mind. Michael joined in next. He started showing up unannounced. Just checking on you, Mom. He'd walk through the house, looking at things, touching things. Once I caught him in Robert's study, going through the desk drawers. I'm looking for Dad's old fishing gear, he said. Thought I might take up fishing. His father's fishing gear was in the garage. It had been in the garage for 20 years. Michael knew that. Rebecca was quieter about it. She'd visit and sigh heavily. This house is so big, Mom. How do you manage it all by yourself? Aren't you lonely here? Then she'd walk around commenting on every little thing. These stairs are dangerous. This carpet is a tripping hazard. You really shouldn't be living here alone. That's when I started paying attention. Really paying attention. I'm not a fool. I've lived long enough to recognize a pattern, and the pattern I was seeing terrified me. My children weren't worried about my safety. They were worried about their inheritance. Robert and I had spent decades building our life, and they wanted their piece of it before I was even gone. The pressure intensified over the next 3 months. They started working together, which should have been my first major red flag. My children never worked together. Jennifer and Rebecca had barely spoken for 5 years after an argument about Thanksgiving seating arrangements. But suddenly, they were unified. A 3-person army against their mother. They arranged a family meeting. All 3 of them showed up at my house on a Saturday morning with serious faces and gentle voices. That's when I knew something terrible was coming. Jennifer did most of the talking. She'd always been the ringleader. Mom, we need to talk about your living situation, she began, reaching across my kitchen table to pat my hand like I was a child. We've been talking to each other, comparing notes. You're forgetting things. You seem confused sometimes. Last week, Rebecca said you called her by Dad's name. I had called her Honey, which is what Robert used to call me. I'd caught myself and corrected it immediately. but Rebecca had twisted it, made it sound like I was losing touch with reality. "We think it's time you move somewhere safer," Michael added. "Somewhere with people around, professional care, just in case." "In case of what?" I asked. My voice was calm, but my heart was racing. "In case you fall. In case you forget to turn off the stove. In case you need help and there's no one around," Jennifer said. She pulled out a brochure, glossy, expensive looking. "We found this beautiful assisted living facility. It's got everything: activities, nurses on staff, restaurant-style dining. You'd love it." I looked at the brochure. Meadowbrook Senior Living. The pictures showed elderly people painting, playing cards, smiling those vacant smiles that people smile for brochures. It looked nice enough. But I didn't want nice enough. I wanted my home. The home I'd lived in for 37 years. The home where I'd raised my children, buried a husband, built a life. "I'm not interested," I said, pushing the brochure back across the table. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. I watched their faces change. The masks of concern slipped just enough for me to see what was underneath. Frustration, impatience, anger. "Mom, you're not thinking clearly," Jennifer said, her voice taking on an edge. "This isn't about what you want. This is about what's safe, what's responsible." "What's responsible is letting me make my own decisions about my own life," I replied. That's when Rebecca started crying. Actual tears. "We're just trying to help you, Mom. Why are you being so difficult? Don't you trust us?" And there it was. The manipulation. The guilt trip. The implication that if I didn't do what they wanted, I was the bad guy. The ungrateful mother who didn't appreciate her children's concern. I looked at the three of them sitting at my table, in my house, trying to take control of my life. "Let me think about it," I said. That was my first mistake, showing my hand. I should have stayed completely silent. But I was hurt, confused. These were my children. I'd given them everything, sacrificed for them, loved them unconditionally, and they were sitting in my kitchen, plotting to warehouse me so they could get to my assets. After they left, I sat alone in that house and cried, not gentle tears, deep body-shaking sobs that came from a place I didn't know existed. The betrayal was worse than anything I'd ever experienced, worse than Robert's death, because at least that wasn't his choice. This was my children actively choosing to discard me, to erase my autonomy, to treat me like an inconvenient obstacle between them and their inheritance. But grief has a funny way of transforming into something else when you sit with it long enough. Mine transformed into clarity. I stopped crying and started thinking, really thinking. If my children were going to treat me like I was incompetent, then I'd let them. I'd play the role they'd written for me, because the only way to beat people who think they're smarter than you is to let them keep thinking it. Over the next 2 weeks, I did my research. I called lawyers without telling my children. I reviewed every document Robert and I had ever signed. Our will, the trust, the deed to the house, the investment accounts, everything. And I discovered something my children clearly hadn't bothered to check. Everything was in my name. Robert had set it up that way specifically. "If something happens to me," he'd told me years ago, "you're in complete control. No one can touch any of it without your signature." Robert had been a careful man, a smart man. He'd protected me even from beyond the grave. Now I just needed to protect myself from the people I'd brought into this world. The calls from my children increased, daily check-ins that felt more like surveillance than concern. Jennifer started showing up with pre-printed forms. "Just some paperwork, Mom. Healthcare proxy, power of attorney, standard stuff everyone does at your age. Just sign here and here and here." I played confused, overwhelmed. "Oh, honey, this is so much. Can I read through it first? My eyes are tired." "Of course, Mom," she'd say with that patient smile that didn't reach her eyes. "But don't wait too long. These things are important." I never signed anything, but I let them think I might. I let them think they were wearing me down. Meanwhile, I was making my own plans. I hired a private investigator. Yes, a real one. I wanted to know exactly how deep this betrayal went. What I discovered made my blood run cold. My children had already contacted real estate agents about selling my house. They'd gotten appraisals. They'd discussed splitting the proceeds 3 ways. Michael had even looked into cashing out my investment accounts. They'd planned everything down to the smallest detail. Everything except the fact that I was still alive, still competent, and still the sole owner of every single asset they were already mentally spending. That's when I knew I couldn't just refuse them. I had to do something bigger, something they'd never forget. The final push came on a Tuesday morning in March. All 3 of my children showed up unannounced. They'd coordinated it, obviously. Jennifer had a folder full of documents. Michael had a laptop. Rebecca had tissues ready for the tears she'd inevitably cry. They were staging an intervention. "Mom, we need to talk," Jennifer said, her voice artificially gentle. "We've been patient. We've given you time to think, but this has gone on long enough. You're not safe here alone. Last week, the neighbor called Michael and said you left your porch light on for 3 days straight." I had left my porch light on, intentionally, because I was reading late at night on the porch and forgot to turn it off one morning, but they'd made it sound like I was losing my grip on reality. "We've made arrangements," Michael continued, opening his laptop. "Meadowbrook has an opening, a beautiful room on the 2nd floor with a view of the garden. We've already paid the deposit." "You paid the deposit?" I asked quietly. "With whose money?" "With your money, Mom," Rebecca said, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away. "We have power of attorney, remember? You signed the papers last month." I had signed no such papers, but they were lying so smoothly I almost believed them myself. Almost. "I don't remember signing anything," I said, making my voice shake slightly. "That's exactly why you need professional care," Jennifer said, pulling papers from her folder. "Mom, we love you. We want what's best for you. These papers transfer the house into a family trust. It protects you. Protects all of us. We'll sell the house, put the money somewhere safe, and use it to pay for your care at Meadowbrook. You'll never have to worry about anything again." They'd thought of everything. Except I'd already talked to my lawyer, who'd assured me that any documents I signed under duress or while being declared incompetent could be challenged. More importantly, I'd already started moving money, quietly, carefully, little bits at a time into new accounts they knew nothing about. But I wasn't ready to show my hand yet, so I did something I never thought I'd do. I gave in. "Okay," I said, my voice small and defeated. "If you really think it's best." The relief on their faces was almost comical. They thought they'd won. Jennifer pulled out a pen. "Just sign here, Mom, and here. This one's the house deed transfer. This one's the financial power of attorney. This one authorizes us to access your accounts." I signed. My hand shook, not from fear, but from rage. I signed every paper they put in front of me while they watched with barely concealed excitement. When I finished, Jennifer gathered the papers like they were precious artifacts. "We'll get you moved in this weekend," she announced. "Michael and I will pack up your essentials. Rebecca will help you settle in at Meadowbrook." "What about my house?" I asked. "What about my things?" "We'll take care of everything," Michael assured me. "Don't worry about any of it. We'll handle the sale, the estate clean out, all of it. You just focus on getting comfortable in your new home." My new prison, they meant. They moved me into Meadowbrook Senior Living on a Saturday. Spring was trying to break through the last dregs of winter, but the sky was gray and cold. Appropriate for a funeral, I thought, because that's what this felt like. My children were burying me alive. The room was exactly as the brochure promised, clean, sterile. Neutral beige walls with framed prints of flowers that meant nothing. A hospital bed, a small desk, a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. Through the window, I could see the beautiful garden they'd mentioned, a sad little courtyard with 2 benches and some struggling shrubs. Jennifer unpacked my clothes into the narrow closet. Rebecca arranged photos on the desk. Robert and me on our wedding day, the kids as children, family Christmas cards from years past, evidence of a life I'd lived that they were now filing away like old receipts. "This is nice, isn't it, Mom?" Rebecca asked with forced cheerfulness. "So cozy." Cozy, as if any prison cell could be cozy if you decorated it right. Michael was on his phone in the corner, texting. I caught a glimpse of his screen. "She's settled in. We can start on the house Monday." He saw me looking and smiled. "Just letting the realtor know we're ready to list the property." "Already?" I asked, playing my role. "Don't you want to wait a bit?" "No point in waiting, Mom," Jennifer said, closing the closet door with a decisive click. "The market's good right now. The faster we sell, the better. And honestly, maintaining an empty house is just throwing money away." They stayed for an hour, made small talk with the nurses, complimented the facility, introduced me to my neighbors, other elderly residents who shuffled past in the hallway like ghosts. Then they left, all three of them, together, probably going straight to my house to start dividing up their spoils. I sat on that hospital bed and smiled, because they had no idea what I'd done, what I was about to do. Remember those papers I signed? My lawyer had prepared something special for me. They looked identical to the real documents my children wanted. Same formatting, same legal language, but they were worthless. They transferred nothing, authorized nothing. They were elaborate props in a play my children thought they were directing. The real papers, the ones that actually mattered, were in a safe deposit box in a bank 3 towns over, a bank none of my children knew about. Those papers put everything into an irrevocable trust with me as the sole trustee. My house, my investments, my money, everything. My children couldn't touch any of it without my explicit written consent. And I'd made sure that consent was impossible to forge. I'd also done something else, something they'd discover soon enough. I'd hired a property management company. The house they thought was sitting empty, waiting to be sold? It had been legally rented out the day after I moved into Meadowbrook, 6-month lease, paid in full up front, which meant they couldn't sell it even if they wanted to. The renters had legal rights to stay through the end of the lease period. But I wasn't going to tell my children any of this. Not yet. I wanted to watch them celebrate first. They came to visit me Sunday afternoon, all 3 of them dressed for church they probably hadn't attended. They brought flowers, cheap carnations from the grocery store, and sat in my tiny room making plans for my life like I wasn't even there. "The realtor is coming Tuesday for photos," Jennifer announced. She was scrolling through her phone, probably looking at furniture for the master bedroom she'd already claimed. "We should have it listed by Friday. She thinks we can get $850, maybe even $900,000 if we price it right." $900,000, Rebecca repeated, her eyes going distant with calculation. "Split 3 ways, that's $300,000 each. I could finally renovate my kitchen." "I'm putting mine toward Jackson's college fund," Michael said virtuously, like that made his greed somehow noble. "State school tuition is insane now." They talked about my house like it was already theirs, discussed paint colors for walls they hadn't inherited, debated whether to stage it or sell it as is. Not once did they ask me how I was feeling, how I was adjusting, if I needed anything. I was furniture to them now, part of the estate they were liquidating. "What about my things?" I asked quietly. "My furniture, Robert's belongings, our wedding china." Jennifer waved her hand dismissively. "We'll go through everything, Mom. Keep what's valuable. Donate the rest. Don't worry about it." "But some of those things have sentimental—" "We'll handle it," Michael interrupted. "You don't need to stress about any of this. That's why we're taking care of it for you." Taking care of it. Taking it, more like. They stayed for 30 minutes. Then Jennifer checked her watch. "We should go. We have that meeting with the estate attorney at 4. "Estate attorney?" I asked. "But I'm not dead." "Of course not, Mom," Rebecca said, patting my hand. "It's just planning, making sure everything's organized. You understand?" I understood perfectly. They were dividing up my estate while I sat in a nursing home, still breathing, still alive, still legally in control of everything they thought they'd already taken. After they left, I sat in that beige room and laughed. Actually laughed out loud. An aide passing in the hallway gave me a concerned look, probably thinking I'd lost my mind. Let her think it. Let everyone think it. Because while my children were measuring my house for renovations, I was measuring my revenge. That night, I called my lawyer from the phone in my room. "It's time," I told him. "Start the process." "Are you sure?" he asked. "Once we do this, there's no going back." I've never been more sure of anything in my life. "All right," he said. I could hear papers rustling on his end. "I'll file the paperwork tomorrow. The property management company will notify the tenants. Everything else is already in motion." "How long?" I asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. Then you'll be free." Free. Such a strange word for a 72-year-old woman sitting in a nursing home. But that's exactly what I'd be. Free from the children who'd tried to bury me. Free from the life they'd tried to steal. And very, very rich from the justice I was about to claim. Monday morning, my phone rang. Jennifer. She was crying. Actually crying. Real tears this time, not the manipulative kind. "Mom, there are people in your house. Strangers. They say they live there. They have a lease." I kept my voice confused. Elderly. "A lease? I don't understand, honey." "Someone rented out the house. The realtor can't even get in to take photos. There's furniture everywhere, and a couple with a baby, and they have legal paperwork saying they can stay for 6 months. Mom, did you do this?" "I don't know what you're talking about," I said. "Maybe your father arranged something before he died?" "Dad died 6 years ago. This lease is dated 3 weeks ago. Someone signed it, and the property management company won't tell us who." "Oh my," I said, letting my voice quaver. "How strange. Maybe you should talk to a lawyer." She hung up on me. I smiled. Round 1 had gone exactly as planned. Tuesday, Michael showed up. He was angry, red-faced, pacing my tiny room like a caged animal. "Mom, we need access to your financial accounts. The papers you signed aren't working. The bank says they need additional verification." "What papers?" I asked innocently. "The power of attorney papers, the ones you signed last week. Mom, focus. This is important. We need to pay for this place, and we need access to your money to do it." "I have money," I said. "Don't I?" "Yes, but we can't access it. And the house situation is a nightmare. We have lawyers looking at it, but they're saying the lease is legal, ironclad. The tenants can stay through August, and there's nothing we can do about it." "That's terrible," I said, shaking my head. "Your father would be so upset." Michael looked at me like he was trying to see inside my head, trying to figure out if I was actually confused or if I was playing him. I kept my face blank, pleasant, befuddled. He left frustrated. I stayed satisfied. Wednesday, all 3 of them came together. This wasn't a friendly visit. Jennifer had a lawyer with her, young guy in an expensive suit, carrying a briefcase like it was a weapon. "Mrs. Mitchell," the lawyer began, "I'm Todd Branson. Your children have retained me to review some concerning financial irregularities regarding your estate." "How nice," I said. "Would anyone like some tea? They have terrible tea here, but I can call for some." "Mom, focus," Jennifer snapped. "Mr. Branson needs to ask you some questions." For 20 minutes, they grilled me. Where were my account statements? Who had I talked to about the house? Had I signed any other documents? Did I remember authorizing a rental property agreement? I played confused, forgetful. Sometimes I'd forget the question halfway through answering it. Sometimes I'd go off on tangents about Robert or the weather or something I'd seen on television. The lawyer finally closed his briefcase. "I'll need to see all original documents, bank records, property deeds, everything." "Of course," I said sweetly. "They're all in my house, in Robert's study, top drawer of his desk." "The house we can't access," Michael said through gritted teeth. "Oh," I replied. "That is a problem, isn't it?" Thursday morning, I signed myself out of Meadowbrook Senior Living. The nurses were surprised. "Mrs. Mitchell, your children said you'd be staying with us permanently. Don't you want to call them first?" "No need," I told her, pulling my coat on over my shoulders. I'm perfectly capable of making my own decisions. I was never incompetent, just patient. The look on her face was priceless. I'd been playing confused old lady so well that even the staff believed it. But I was done playing. I took a taxi to my bank, the one 3 towns over, the one my children knew nothing about. I walked in, showed my identification, and asked to access my safe deposit box. Inside was everything that mattered: real deeds, real account information, real power of attorney documents that I'd never signed over to anyone, and cashier's checks, lots of cashier's checks. I'd been slowly liquidating everything for the past 3 months, selling stocks, cashing out bonds, converting it all to liquid assets my children couldn't track. I need to close my box, I told the bank manager, and I need to wire some funds. By Friday afternoon, I'd liquidated everything. The house was already under contract. I'd sold it privately to the tenants who'd been renting it. They'd fallen in love with it, wanted to buy it immediately, and offered me $875,000 cash. Done. The investments Robert and Dee I had carefully built, converted to cash, and wired to a new account. My pension, my Social Security, my savings, all moved to accounts my children couldn't touch. When everything was tallied up, I had $2,300,000, give or take a few thousand for transaction fees and lawyer costs, $2.3 million that my children had counted as theirs, that they'd already spent in their minds, that they'd betrayed me to get. Saturday morning, I boarded a plane. I won't tell you where I went. That's my secret. But it's warm here. The ocean is blue, and nobody knows who I am or where I came from. Before I left, I sent one email to all 3 of my children. It was short. Dear Jennifer, Michael, and Rebecca, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. The house is sold. The money is moved. Everything you tried to steal from me has vanished. You treated me like I was already dead, so I decided to give you what you wanted, a mother who's gone. The difference is, I took my life with me. You get nothing, no inheritance, no house, no money, nothing but the memory of how you threw away your mother for greed. I hope it was worth it. I won't be in touch. Don't bother looking for me. You're not entitled to know where I am or what I do with my life. You lost that right when you put me in that nursing home. Consider this my final lesson to you. Respect your parents while they're alive, or regret it when they're gone. I'm not gone. But to you, I might as well be. Goodbye. Mom. If you think they deserve this, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happened next is even better. 6 months later, I was sitting on a balcony overlooking the ocean, reading a book and drinking coffee that actually tasted like coffee, not the institutional dishwater they served at Meadowbrook. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Mom? Rebecca's voice, shaking, tearful. Mom, is that you? Who's calling? I asked calmly. It's Rebecca. Mom, please, we need to talk. We've been trying to find you for months. We hired an investigator. We filed missing person reports. The police said you weren't missing, that you left voluntarily, but we didn't know where you were or if you were okay. I'm fine, I said. Better than fine, actually. Mom, please come home. We made a mistake. We're so sorry. We were just worried about you, and we handled it wrong, and... You weren't worried about me, I interrupted. You were worried about yourselves, about money, about what you could get from me. Silence on the other end. Then, that's not fair. Isn't it? I asked. Tell me, Rebecca, what would have happened if I'd really been incompetent, if I'd really needed care? Would you have visited me at Meadowbrook, or would you have sold my house, taken my money, and forgotten about me in that beige room? More silence. We would have visited, she finally said, but her voice lacked conviction. No, you wouldn't have. You'd have told yourselves you were too busy, that I wouldn't remember anyway, that it was too hard to see me like that, and eventually your visits would have stopped altogether. I would have died alone in that nursing home while you 3 argued over which of you got my wedding ring. Mom, I'm not your mother anymore, I said. Not in any way that matters. You made sure of that when you decided I was more valuable dead than alive. Well, congratulations. You got your wish. I'm dead to you now. Enjoy your inheritance of nothing. We're contesting the sale, she said, her voice hardening. Our lawyer says we can prove you weren't competent when you sold the house, that you were confused, that someone took advantage of you. I laughed. Actually laughed. Go ahead and try. I have documentation of every decision I made, medical evaluations showing perfect cognitive function, lawyer testimony, witness statements, everything. You'll spend what money you have left on legal fees, and you'll still lose. Because I was always competent. I was just smarter than you thought. The family is falling apart because of this, Rebecca said. Jennifer and Michael aren't speaking. Jennifer's husband is talking about divorce because of the financial stress. Michael had to take out a loan because he'd already spent money he didn't have. This is destroying all of us. Good, I said. You destroyed me first. Consider us even. Mom, please. I hung up, blocked the number, poured myself another cup of coffee and watched the waves crash against the shore. Somewhere 3,000 miles away, my children were dealing with the consequences of their choices, learning that actions have reactions, that betrayal has a price. And I was here, free, rich, and finally at peace. That phone call was 3 months ago. I haven't heard from them since. I assume they've given up, realized that I meant what I said, or maybe they're still looking, still hoping to find me and somehow guilt me into giving them what they think they deserve. Either way, it doesn't matter. I've moved on. You might think this story ends with me being bitter, angry, haunted by the family I left behind. But that's not how this ends. This ends with me living the life I should have been living all along. I've made friends here, real friends, people who like me for who I am, not what I can give them. I volunteer at a local library 3 days a week. I've taken up painting, something I always wanted to do but never had time for when I was raising children and managing a household. I'm terrible at it, but that's not the point. The point is, I'm doing what I want, when I want, for the first time in my adult life. I think about Robert sometimes, wonder what he'd think of all this. Part of me believes he'd be proud. He loved our children, but he loved me more. He'd have been devastated to see how they treated me, how they tried to erase me from my own life. And he'd have approved of how I fought back. Robert always said I was stronger than I gave myself credit for. Turned out he was right. As for my children, I don't hate them. Hate requires energy I'm not willing to spend, but I don't forgive them either. Forgiveness would require remorse on their part, and the only thing they're sorry about is getting caught. They're sorry they lost the money. They're not sorry they hurt me. I've rewritten my will. Everything I have goes to charity when I die. Scholarships for elderly women going back to school, funds for elder abuse prevention, organizations that help seniors maintain their independence. My children won't see a penny of it. They already got everything they're going to get from me, a lesson in consequences. People ask me sometimes if I have any regrets, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is no. I gave my children every chance to be decent human beings, to treat me with the respect I'd earned over 72 years of living. They chose greed instead. They chose themselves. So I chose me. I'm 73 now. I don't know how many years I have left. Could be 5, could be 20, but however many I have, they're mine. Not my children's, not the nursing homes, mine. I'll spend them how I want, where I want, with people who actually care about me. And when I die, I'll die on my own terms. Not in some beige room with artificial flowers waiting for children who never visit. I'll die somewhere beautiful, having lived a life worth living, having stood up for myself when it mattered most. That's my story, my revenge, my justice. And it's the best ending I could have asked for. The moral? Don't underestimate your elders. We've survived this long for a reason, and sometimes the quietest people make the loudest exits.